remember this. What I'm saying on stage today applies to future medical professionals, fitness professionals, sports rehabilitation specialists, and even fitness enthusiasts, whether it's marathon running, swimming, or any other sport. In fact, all of them require muscles and basic strength. While everyone's minds are at their sharpest, let's start by learning the most difficult thing, which is also the most important. In other words, if you don't understand what I'm about to explain, it will be very hard for you to grasp the content of the next 4 days. But this isn't something you can master all at once. I myself spent more than 10 years to truly get it. Let me show you something. There's a phrase here: getting your grip right is 100 times more important than doing the movement correctly. For example, as a coach who appears very professional when he's teaching a client, every movement the client does may look very standard. However, if the grip is wrong, then all those standard movements that follow are actually not very meaningful. Before starting this course, what I spent the most time thinking about was how to convey something so subtle and complex, because even the slightest difference, even a difference of just a few millimeters, can completely change the way your muscles feel. To someone watching from the side, it might not look any different. But for the person actually doing the exercise, the difference feels absolutely huge. Just a tiny deviation, and the sensation in the target muscle changes completely. Now, let's take a look. I've drawn a whole bunch of lines for you. Can anyone understand these lines? What do these lines correspond to? When you're doing a certain exercise, where is your support? Where should you be exerting force? Let me show you the first one, this white line here. What do you think this pressure point is for? Is it for pushing, pulling, curling, or pressing? What do you think? This line represents the pressure point when pushing the spot where the dumbbell, barbell, or handle applies force during the movement. No matter whether you're doing a bench press or an overhead press, when you perform these movements, the dumbbell or barbell moves along this path. Most people move it horizontally across the palm like this. So if this line is off, then even if all your other force lines above are correct, it doesn't really matter. Plus, it's especially easy to injure your wrist or elbow and shoulder joint injuries. So a lot of beginners, when doing the bench press even from just pressing the empty bar, and especially men by the time they reach around 100 kilograms, they start getting injured. It could be the long head of the biceps tendon, the inner side of the elbow joint, or TFCC, which is a triangular fibrocartilage complex injury, and all sorts of other problems. These are related to incorrect hand positioning during the press. Let me just give you a simple example. Most gym members, when they're pressing, let's say, this is a dumbbell if you hold it so that it looks more parallel to the ground. That's actually wrong. And the more parallel it is, the more incorrect it becomes. But, for example, if you're using a Smith machine, the bar is fixed. You see, with a dumbbell, I can tilt it, I can angle it like this. But with a Smith machine, you can't, the bar is fixed in place. So, with a lot of machines, when you're working out, because the handles are fixed, the only thing you can adjust is your hand. Since the equipment is fixed, when you grip it, you end up holding it like this. But if you grip it like this instead, then there's no support point on the outside. And all the pressure falls on your metacarpal bones here. In this situation, the force transmission is problematic, and your joint support is also compromised. So the more you push like this, the more likely you are to develop a triangular fibrocartilage complex, TFCC injury. Once you injure the TFCC, it takes at least several months to recover. Plus, you need to know how to train properly. If you don't want to stop training, you'll be damaging it while trying to heal at the same time, which makes it very hard to recover. So a lot of women, especially those who are very left-brained after gripping, will look in the mirror, and if they see their hands on parallel, will forcefully adjust them to be parallel. In other words, when you grip naturally without looking, you might actually be doing it right. But as soon as you look and deliberately try to adjust, you're almost certain to get it wrong. So first of all, when you grip, you shouldn't be gripping straight like this. And when you try to make your hands perfectly parallel, it's especially easy for your wrist to collapse downward. Because the weight presses down on your metacarpal here, it immediately causes your wrist to collapse. So when you push like this, your force line breaks right here. So what is the prerequisite for all proper pushing movements? It's that after the pressure is applied here, if you look at the dumbbell or barbell from the side, the vertical line is the inside, and this is the outside of the forearm. It should divide the forearm into two equal halves. If you hold it like this, doesn't it shift to the outside of your forearm? Right? At this point, your joint support and muscles are no longer bearing the load, and the greatest pressure is on your wrist. So the weight you're holding must be perpendicular to the center of your forearm. Only by pushing like this can you exert force, stabilize it, and ensure proper force transmission. That way your muscles and fascia can control it. This is the most basic requirement. Whether you're pressing a barbell or not, if you want to improve your bench press performance, but your wrist is positioned like this, all the weight over 100 kilograms is pressing on your wrist, just how strong do you think your wrist is? There's no way you can increase your intensity to a very high level. So if your wrist and hand aren't kept completely upright, look, what happens when you hold them fully upright? The bar shifts to the inside of your forearm, doesn't it? Let's look again. If my wrist is held completely upright, then the weight I'm gripping, the force and the line of gravity go directly to the inside of my forearm. At this point, the forearm isn't providing any support. That's why when I teach students, and even when I train my own team of instructors, I say, hey, this is an exception. In addition, this means that during the pushing motion, the force shifts to the inside, and you can't use the strength of the outside. If there's no pressure on the outside, the muscles there won't tighten. You can't engage the peak of your muscle, and the outside of your elbow joint becomes unstable. Meanwhile, the pressure on the inside is too great, and the outside is unstable. Also, once your wrist is upright like this, if you're holding a free weight, it's easy for it to fall inward like this. So at this point, the proximal joints of your fingers can't exert any force, and you can only grip and pinch the weight with the distal joints of your fingers. That's why you can't hold on to it firmly with just a swing. This is the most basic mistake that beginners are especially prone to making. So what do you need to find first? For all pushing movements, no matter how you grip, when you hold the dumbbell or barbell, its vertical line should be at the center of your forearm, perpendicular to the middle of your forearm. That's how you should push. Pushing like this makes you less likely to get injured. Let's not talk about whether you can build muscle yet first. Don't hurt yourself. It's really unfortunate if you get injured before you even get bigger. Next, when you grip, the weight is basically pressing down above your pisiform bone. The pisiform is there to provide support. It presses down like this. So it's at an angle. And then what you actually feel, you might wonder, at what exact angle should I be holding this? But you can't really judge that accurately. How many degrees should I tilt from the web of my thumb toward the base of my pinky? Don't bother memorizing this. There's no point. So instead, just remember this. Check if your pisiform bone is pressing down and see if this vertical line is aligned with the center line of your forearm. Then close your eyes and feel whether all 5 of your fingers are in close contact with the dumbbell or barbell. Make sure there are no gaps. As long as there are no gaps, it means you're gripping it correctly. Then you need to adjust it so that there are no gaps. The pressure is on the pisiform bone and it's aligned with the center line of your forearm. If you can do all that, you're basically set, but you need to practice this. So at the beginning, have 2 people each hold one end of a stick, then pull outward. If you're gripping it correctly, it will be hard for the other person to pull the stick out of your hand. Of course, if you're not gripping it correctly, it's easy for the stick to be pulled away. But pulling and pushing are actually a bit different. When you're pushing, the weight is pressing down on you, while when you're pulling, you're holding onto the weight to keep it from slipping away. There's a slight difference, but this exercise is still helpful for practicing your basic grip. All right? So if you think you've understood, I'll find someone who hasn't practiced much and have them grip it. Then you'll act as the coach and point out any issues with their grip. Let's see if you can spot the problem.